I love it when a scene goes to hell. Let me just... I love it when a scene goes... I'm just gonna go to this. Wow. And it all happens when it's live. So, okay. So, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. And I need to turn down the echo. And it all happens when it's there. So, now we're not hearing any feedback. So, just for the hell of it, I'm going to test this out. Okay, so, I was trying some new music, kind of get things started, and yeah, apparently it didn't bode well. There might be some skipping. I meant to do a test last night. I was having a little bit of an issue broadcasting, and so the 30-minute live stream that I didn't get picked up for whatever reason. So what I'm actually showing you is. So this weekend, yesterday and today, trying to, I'm always paranoid. I just want to make, okay, good. So I just wanted to make sure that that the mic was being heard. So what we did was, we were working for a local, we were doing a job for a local dinosaur park. And so they have these animatronic dinosaurs in this pen. It's really epic. Let me see if I can't... I've got some images so that I can set this up so that I can actually slide these in. When we were recording, we were trying to do a recording so that we could play this back in an edited form later for you. But what keeps happening in OBS on my end is we'll record and there is absolutely no sound. The mic is showing that everything is rolling just fine. I've got, tone, and, we just weren't getting any audio. So what we did was I went ahead and I just ran this through Sony Movie Studio, and I essentially edited it up so it was, a little more visually, acceptable. There were times where nothing was going on in front of this dinosaur. We had just been talking to people that were coming up to the fence. So basically, these are animatronic dinosaurs. There is a T-Rex in there. I'm showing you some images here of some damage that we had to repair. Really huge gashes. I think that gash was something like 4 or 5 inches. So there's a T-Rex in there, and there's a Triceratops, and then 2 Triceratops babies. So there's 4 animatronic creatures in this pen, and they had been running for years. And the more they would over the years they started to tear their skin, and it looked like someone had gone in and done a repair probably a couple of years ago, and used a material that I wouldn't use myself. But it's not to say it was a bad idea. It was just something that I wouldn't have done. And so a lot of it was breaking free from the skin and needed to be replaced. So what I did was I took my special effects, background, because this is essentially a special effect creature, and I foam fabricated replacements to certain areas of this guy. I've had this set up in studio a couple of times. I don't understand why it won't open in the basic studio format. So I'm going to try to go in here. I hope I don't lose audio, but I've essentially got me access the photo bank, so I apologize. But basically, we were cutting out strips of upholstery foam and fitting them into these places where we could create structure to the creature, and blend it in with its own skin textures and stuff, so that when the creature moved, it had a little more slack in the skin, but at the same time wasn't necessarily going to damage those parts as quickly as it did with the other patches. Now, anytime you're patching a skin like this, I mean, once you start patching something, it's basically going to just continue to erode, because essentially this thing is a latex coated foam creature with a pneumatic system for animatronics underneath. Really cool. I got to be honest, and I believe that dinosaur is 25 years old, if I remember correctly. Both dinosaurs, all four dinosaurs were like 25 years old. So it's holding up remarkably well. I mean, but basically what happens with anything that's foam is you're going to start seeing it erode. Foam will start to rot, basically, the second it comes in contact with oxygen. That's why if you go to Joann Fabrics or any fabric store and you buy like upholstery foam and it's like green in color, or it's blue in color and it starts to yellow, or it's white and starts to yellow on you, or it's blue and starts to turn green, I mean, that's the oxygen working its magic on the foam. Now, that doesn't mean that the foam is bad at that point, but over the period of 25 years, it's going to start to rot. So you're going to have to start replacing pieces of it. Now, eventually, these creatures are going to have to be reskinned completely, which, to be completely honest, it's going to be difficult, because whatever mold they came out of is long since dead. So, I mean, we're talking 25 years. We'll say the company that made these probably made, I don't know, maybe a dozen of these creatures, and then, after 25 years, probably folded. We don't necessarily know that they had, but it's not likely, and that they stuck around. And essentially, there's no way to cast this again. So there's ways that we can reskin it. They're costly, and basically the repair jobs I'm doing here, and that's my wife in the background. We're kind of working the issue, but the repair jobs we did here are minor in cost. But basically, I told them, eventually you're going to have to replace the skin, and whether that's me that does it or it's somebody else, so be it. The reason I like to work, I like to get these guys to work with us, is because we're local. A lot of stuff we do is just mainly out of the state and out of the country. I rarely do films in Utah. I don't like the stigma that's attached to them. I don't like the subject matters that come out. So I basically work with mostly out of state. So, but these creatures are a whole different story. I mean, these dinosaur parks and these exhibits are different. I mean, especially this one. This one's kind of geared towards kids. So you can see every now and again there behind my wife. There's like a table there, but there's a chain link fence. So it's kind of set up so it looks like these guys are behind this high tension wire and this chain link fence to protect the people who are watching them. And they're doing this little face-off. The T-Rex is threatening, the Triceratops mom, and there's two baby Triceratops there, which I'm sure I'll show here in a few minutes. And that is about, that's pretty much, it's pretty much the critter setup. So it's cool, and the kids love it. I mean, even while this thing was shut down so that we could do the work on Sunday and this afternoon, these kids were completely enamored with it. The park went as far as to hang these signs that said that the dinosaurs were resting, that they had been sedated for veterinary attention. So the kids were asking us questions about how the dinosaurs were feeling, and if we were working near the mouth, we'd say we were just we were cleaning their teeth, and if we're working around the neck, we'll be like, they played a little rough together, so we had to go in there and sorry, I was distracted by the fact that it looks like I'm spooling on here. Yeah. So anyway, so it looked like it looked like we were stitching them up and stuff. So it was a lot of fun to work around these kids. Sorry, had to hydrate myself. So it's fun to work on this stuff with these kids around because they're asking all these cool questions. I'm applying glue to this one side of the creature, and I had this one kid. Oh my God, he had to be 4 years old. Comes walking up and asks me, he's like, "So what are you doing?" And he was a little. You could tell by the questions he was asking. He was a little more savvy. He wasn't going to be one of those kids that were going to fall for the fact that we were doing dental work on a dinosaur. He knew they were robotic, and he was like, "When are you going to turn them back on? When are you going to turn them back on?" I was like, "Well, we got to patch some stuff first." And I'm holding this barge pot in my hand with a brush, and I'm about to start applying it to this area. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm putting this glue on here so that I can attach the foam, and and we can patch this big hole right here." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Have you heard of hot glue?" And I'm just kind of grinning ear to ear. Yes, I've heard of hot glue. He's like, "Hot glue does wonders." I mean, this is a 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid telling me this. And he's like, "Hot glue's great. I use it for everything. I glue popsicle sticks together. I glue G.I. Joes together." And I'm just thinking, the mother is just mortified because she's just watching this kid sound off. He's like, "But you got to be careful because hot glue gets in your clothes, and if it gets on your shirt, your mom will get mad at you." That's great. So I had a 4 or 5-year-old, essentially dictating the merits of hot glue usage on animatronics. So that was a trip. That was a lot of fun. So, sorry about that. It's hot as hell in Utah right now. Hot as hell. Which is why I'm out here in my kitchen doing my broadcast tonight instead of in my office, because my office, it's like the one room in the house that doesn't get any AC. And I got to run like 4 or 5 fans in that thing to get a wind tunnel started just so that I'm relatively comfortable. And by that point, no one can hear what's going on. Let's go back to the video. So essentially, I'm showing you right here a piece of the foam. This is before I realized that the recording wasn't working. It's a piece of foam that I've just added some barge to, and you can see I'm kind of pointing out where I've already added a piece of foam. Sorry, I'm pausing for a second because I keep going back to check out Twitch, and it appears that I'm spooling in the same place, and I'm not exactly having the greatest time with Twitch right now. It seems to be one problem after another, whether I'm having to log in to my account each and every time that I come in, even though I click that little button that says 30 days, good for 30 days. Right now I'm testing my, well, it's peaking out at about 15, almost 6 to 16. So my test upload is about 15.5. So, it's not horrible. So I'm not sure what the deal is. There's always something, though. Anyway, so eventually, when this catches up to my audio, if that's the case, you'll see me adding some patches there. You can see I've already added 2 patches to the neck. It's basically kind of a fold in the skin. I'm creating a fold in the skin. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because the neck is currently extended as far as possible to the creature's left. And I'm creating this bubble effect in the skin so it looks like a natural fold. It's a rather thick piece of skin. And so at the full extension, that fold is pretty tight. And you see how I'm moving the head there? Now, when it moves from the full range back to the right again, all it's doing is compressing the foam. So there's really no stress, on it when it's being compressed like that. where it goes to move to the full left, that's when you start to get the tension. And I've actually created a compression bubble there so that it's just as laxed when it's in that fully extended position. I did the exact same thing with the Triceratops, and we'll get to a video portion of that here in a minute. The thing about the right there, I'm actually coating it with some barge so that I can seal the foam so that we can start painting over top of it. But when we get to the Triceratops, there was a huge hole in the Triceratops neck that required a patch that was about 30 inches long, and it ran from the spine of the creature all the way down its throat, like someone had just bled it out or something. So that needed to be repaired, and there was a bunch of fraying in between. So I created the same compression fold there, so that while it was extended to its full, to its max, it was also, there's some slack in the skin, so that it doesn't wear out as quickly. So the material I'm using will last longer, and the material I'm using will last longer, and the way I've used the material will actually give it a little more longevity. So yeah, so we're prepping it for paint there. It's going to be a little bit of time. You can see the kids coming up. Some of these guys were funny as hell, these kids. So, and we were under the understanding that essentially there'd be this, the exhibit would be closed in a manner that allowed us to work without any interruptions. And what was a one-day job quickly turned into a two-day job because we were constantly bombarded with little kids' questions. And this park is geared towards kids. So, we want future gigs with these guys. So, we were answering questions. We were, I'm wearing my Creature Designer T-shirt, representing, Escape Design Effects. And, there we kind of switched the angle a little bit. You can see the Triceratops in the back. Right there where I'm bending over, there is a smaller Triceratops to both the right and the left. So there's a baby on the right and the left of the Triceratops. So it's it's kind of staring me down. Now those damn horns are practically eye level. Even though we were able to manipulate the hey noob, how you doing? Or Neb, sorry Neb. Yeah, dinosaurs are cool, man. We had a blast with this project. Yeah, it was. Yeah, so these guys are like facing off. The T-Rex is trying to eat the babies, and it was cool. But those horns were they. I got gored so many times. I've got this really huge not gash, but bruise on the side of my head where it finally took me out. For good. Just as we were packing everything out. But where it kept stabbing me was in the back of the neck. I would be backing up to look at the T-Rex, and that damn horn would nail me in the back of the neck, right in the center of the back of the neck. Countless times. I know I've got a bruise on there somewhere, so I'm going to have to... But, so this is how we spent our weekend. It would have been great to be able to live stream from this location. It would have been a blast, actually, because we could have gotten some of the kids doing their thing in the background. But the problem is the download speed was fine, but when we tested the upload speed, we were literally getting 4 megabytes. And so, I was like, oh my God, yeah, we can barely stream at the house with 15, we get 4 in here, and God only knows what's going to happen. Absolutely nothing, I'm sure. So yeah, it's it was a blast. These trees, they had a little forest going on in there. this wall over there where you can see just to the right of the Triceratops. It looks a little bare, but the way the walls are set up, there's no way for anyone to actually see that but us. So it just looks like the forest goes way back into the back. And the creature, there is so much to this creature. It's a full Triceratops. Every creature in here, there's no partials. It's not like it's just a head peeking out from the trees. This thing is full on. It's a full size Triceratops, just crazy. And so there's a lot of it that's kind of hidden. And so, right there by my shoulder between my wife and I, just off to the side of the T-Rex's head, there's this glass case with this enormous amethyst in it. People are pretty much standing right there, and as they gaze across the corner there, they see the full length of the Triceratops all the way to the back, but they can't see that raw wall. But so Neb, what are you up to? Let me see. I'm going to switch back here. I'm kind of toggling back and forth between OBS and Twitch so I can kind of monitor, how everything's streaming. Prepping for dinner. Holy crap, man! It's like 20 after 10 here. Where are you at? What state are you in? Country, for that matter. I am right now trying to on the West Coast. Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, I can see that. Oh my God. My wife and I have a routine. I pick her up from work about 5 o'clock, and we come home, feed the dog, and then essentially, about 6 o'clock, it's dinner time, and then it's vegetation the rest of the night, unless I've got some kind of weird paperwork to do or an appearance or something weird, But that's basically our night. I know we're wild and crazy, but so right there, there's some patchwork going on the jaw of the T-Rex, and it's really cool when you see these things up close, because you don't really have. I mean, you can see how large it is, and to be honest, this one is probably a juvenile. Size. Compared to the Triceratops, I know the T-Rex is a lot bigger, but this one, I was talking to some of the park guys, and it's so much fun as a creature designer to talk to anthropologists, because they know so much about that world, and so they're kicking out these descriptions of dinosaurs that, I used to think I was an enthusiast, but, they're kicking out these descriptions of dinosaurs that just sound like something out of a Hollywood movie or Lord of the Rings or something. You're just like, no, that can't be. And they're like, nope. Here's a sketch. This is essentially a sketch based on an artist's rendition of what we believe the creature looks like. And I'm just like completely blown away. You can see I'm over there right now, working on the neck of the Triceratops. What was going on was we were having to lay down foam at different times on each one of the creatures, because while we were working, we'd lay down foam on the T-Rex, and it was taking forever. There was air circulation in there, but it wasn't to the point where we could we could get the contact cement to dry, and it was maddening. And so with contact cement, you apply it to both pieces, the surface that you're gluing to, and you apply it to the surface of the material that you're working with. And to get it to work, both sides have to be dry. And trying to get it to dry when the foam is just really just soaking up, that adhesive, is just crazy. It was maddening. So we would work on one, we'd prep one creature, and then we'd move to the other. And there were 4 creatures. So by the time I got to the 4th and I set up the prep work, I knew that by that time T-Rex was probably close to ready for its next application. You can see at the top of the jaw there the foam that I just laid down for that. Here in a minute, I think I get a decent shot of what I'm working on the Triceratops. Pardon me. Oh my God, I've been doing this stuff all day. The weird thing about the entire thing was, okay, so they have these two baby Triceratops. Like I said, there's one on the right and the left of the mother. And it's probably the size of a really big bulldog. I mean, like an abnormally large bulldog. And it's about as high as a typical bulldog, but the width is just enormous. So they've got these two bulldogs, and they got these two baby Triceratops sitting on either side, and they've got so much battle damage. I mean, with the movement of the big creatures, you can see that the weight of everything is being kind of pulled, and it's taut, and it's putting a lot of stress because foam has weight. So even when you're working with styrofoam, everybody's like, oh, that's the lightest material in the world, and they're right. But when you pile it up, it's still going to get big. I mean, get heavy. Like we were working on these huge candy bars and gusset bags for this trade show thing that we were that was going on, and we were hired to make these things. And I think this gusset bag was something like 13 feet tall, and it was even hollow. I mean, there was a hollowed out space inside, and that thing weighed like 600 pounds, and it was straight up styrofoam. So I mean, even foam, even the light stuff is heavy. So when these creatures, these big creatures, are moving around and they're working the friction against the pneumatics underneath and the servos, and they're wearing themselves. You can see me. I got some foam there in my hand, and they're working on that stuff. It starts to pull and tear, and the weight and everything. So those little creatures getting tore up the way they were, I mean, there were very little pneumatics involved. There was something like, they really just sort of like, they kind of wiggled side to side and their heads moved. So there wasn't a lot of movement going on, but I got to be honest with you, it was there was a lot of damage. Both of the creatures, both the little ones, you can kind of see that right in the center of the screen there. If you go all the way to the bottom, you kind of see the top of one of the babies between the T-Rex head and the head of the Triceratops. And its hips were tore up. The neck was, of course, tore up. That's probably where the most movement took place. And one of them, the leg was holding on by just a sliver of latex skin. So the foam had completely torn away, and it was this huge gash, which I've got pictures of. I just, unfortunately, let me see if I go to the photo. Individually, so that kind of sucks. I had them set up so that I could just open them up and click the little eyeball so they became visible, but it's not working out. So you can see me with the foam. You see how big that piece is. That was one of the pieces that went onto that neck. It was just enormous. So I'm coating that with a barge. It's called barge. It's this really highly flexible contact cement that we use to attach this stuff. So, and again, Neb, you just sort of popped in. I don't know when you came in to hear this, but we were actually trying to record this as we were doing this. This was yesterday. This portion was going on yesterday. What I keep doing wrong, but I was looking at the OBS, and it looked like it was recording audio. We had definite movement. The bars were going. It was redlining in certain areas, and so I mean, I was kind of like, there should have been audio, but when we played it back in, what was it? We transferred the file to what is this again? I know it's Studio movie Platinum 12 or whatever the hell the program is. There was just no audio, and every time I do it, that same thing happens. So the reason why I'm playing it back now and kind of like talking over top of it is basically because that happened. So you can see I'm coating the neck area with more barge. I'm probably putting because it's such a large piece, and there's two large pieces that are going in there. You want to get a couple of coats of that barge in there, and you got to let them dry in between. Looks like I'm getting some frame errors. Skipped frame detected, 23% 4 minutes ago. So keep an eye on that. It looks like it's frozen up here. No, there's some movement. It's just glitching. I wonder if everyone has this problem. I mean, I'm looking at my my upload speed is actually not too bad. I mean, it's not great. It's 16, but 15.5. So it's not horrible, but I don't know. Maybe it's this video that's doing it this time. So basically, I've coated each one of these pieces almost completely with barge. The stink is just horrendous in there, and so we've got fans blowing the smell away, but also trying to dry out the barge, and the fumes are just horrific. So we're coating full pieces like this wide and almost like 3 feet long, and then you have to go into the creature and coat it with barge, and then as soon as that dries, you go in and coat both sides again, and we were finding that we were trying to speed it up with a heat gun, which, it's considered hot kicking. When I say hot kicking, I mean it's a way of speeding up the process of getting it to do what it's supposed to do. And sometimes we use that with a hardener. If we're using fiberglass, sometimes you'll add a little more of the hardener to the resin, so it kicks off a lot faster. You're not waiting all day for the fiberglass to set up. This is basically what this was doing, but it was whatever was on the surface of these creatures. Even though we cleaned it, it was just ridiculous. It wasn't sticking, or it was peeling off, and I was just like, it was like a nightmare at first. Finally, we got everything to cooperate, and it was doing fairly well. Had a little bit of a hiccup again today. But basically, like, you get in a zone and you start working, and then suddenly this little kid would come up with these, random questions, and because we're in, oh my God, I'm sorry, because we're in Utah. Sundays are typically, most everything is closed. So when we went in there yesterday to work on this stuff, we expected it to be empty, but that thing was full of kids. And then I went in around. Can't even remember what time I went in today to start working, try to get the last, 20-30% of the work done. And the place was packed again. I mean, it was worse. This is a really popular park. So there was just tons and tons of kids there. Tons of questions. Crazy off-the-wall questions. It looks like I got another one of those skip detects. So yeah. Let's go back to that video. So right there, it looks like I'm probably prepping that same long piece. Oh no, I'm actually using a heat gun to try to dry out the surface of that big piece. Oh my God, that piece would have taken so long to dry without that that hot heat gun. Damn it, that heat gun. So, yeah, we'd still be there waiting for it to dry had we not used that. And then this is my famous, I put something down, where the hell did I put it? You can see my wife, we got all the fans blowing everything away from my, she's holding the fan right there as my ass blocked the shot. She's pushing all of the fumes to the back of the room so that she doesn't have to deal with it. And thank God that those fans were there, because, yeah, there she is. You could see her. You could see her holding the fan in front of her face. Oh my God. Yeah, just trying to get rid of those fumes, and I wish I could tell you what the correspondence was between us there. I love working with my wife. She's all in for the first portion of it, and then you can slowly see her starting to like, yeah, painting's fun. I'm having a good time, but holy crap, I am just dying here tonight. But she gets to the point where she's she's just like, I've had it. I'm sitting down. She's a fair weather painter. Let me see. You've completed 8 achievements. New day, new stream, and 7 more. Got to get used to some of these weird ass alerts. So at some point I'm going to go over there with that. I'm going to start changing here at some point, changing the camera angles so that you can see a different. We started out with that big angle of the dinosaur itself, the T-Rex itself. There's one of the moms came up to ask some questions. Actually, I believe she was a volunteer in the gift shop or something, because this is a 501c3, so this park is basically a non-profit organization. So she was a volunteer, so she had her grandkids there, and we're asking all kinds of questions. But you can see the pile. I mean, there's a little kid over there. I mean, they were just everywhere. I mean, they just love these creatures. So I was kind of torn as to whether or not fixing this thing in front of the kids was a good thing, because I mean, I felt like I was kind of like stealing some of the magic, telling them that, yep, it's just a robot, and yep, it's broken, so I have to go in here and fix it. And so, because when they see these things move, you should see these kids. There's always one of two reactions. It's either complete glee at the movement of these creatures and the roaring back and forth and stuff, or it's spastic freak out and they scream running out of the room. Either way, it's freaking hilarious to watch. Yeah, this is me probably looking for something I set down and I'll never be able to find. I'm pretty much well known for that. I've my apprentice. She used to kind of like, she had gotten so used to it, I think, that she would actually just watch me set something down and take a mental note of where I had put it, so that when I went looking for it, she'd be able to point it out to me as if I was some Alzheimer's patient, dementia, or something, She couldn't. She might be right. I don't know. All those fumes. Yeah. So I'm probably. Let me see. Looks like I'm trying to dry up the surface there so that I can add that big piece in there. And my wife looks like she's checking out. She's probably playing on her phone or something like that. She's so awesome. I'm colorblind, so when it comes to painting a creature, I've got no problems. If I'm essentially painting a creature, painting it the way I want it to be painted, and I'm fully invested in what I'm doing. So I know that there's going to be these level of browns. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of yellow here. There's going to be some black here. Blah blah blah. Maybe maybe some blues or reds, whatever. I know that because I'm the one putting it down. But when I'm matching a creature, like those guys were, they were like this weird dark brown gray for the T-Rex, a light brown gray for the Triceratops mom, and then the two little ones were this green gray, almost like a bright green gray. So, I'm just like, shit, if it matches in my eyes, it's probably very likely not to be matching for someone else. But the reverse is also true. So my wife, she sets up this, she does this amazing paint job on the neck of the Triceratops, and we kind of go back, because I mean, basically everyone's looking at this from about 10 to 15 feet away from the creatures. So looking at it really up close isn't a good thing, because you're looking at the creature, in an unrealistic perspective. So you have to stand back and look at these guys. It's not like a mask that someone's going to be wearing and people are going to be up on you, checking it out and trying to figure it out, So we were taking this step back, and we're probably a good maybe 12 feet away. And we're looking at the Triceratops, and she's like, oh, thank God, that blended perfectly. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it did? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, you don't think it blends? And I'm like, I'm taking your word for it. I'm the one who's colorblind. If you tell me that thing blends, I'm happy. And the park guys, occasionally we would get one of the paleontologists walk by, giving us this huge thumbs up for for the work and stuff. And I'm asking him, does that blend okay? Does that look good? He's like, yeah. From where I'm standing, it's perfect, which is where the customers would be standing. And I'm looking at it, and it's just, it's not glowing. Okay, so for me, it was like looking at a blue-gray, like a bright blue-gray addition to a plain gray surface. And so it looked horrifically obvious that we had put something there. So my version of colorblindness, whatever that is, I think they told me years ago when I was in the military, it's how I got my job in the military, was because I had this kind of colorblindness. I could see camo in the jungle, and I could see it as if it were, not sort of that same way. I mean, it stood out. I mean, it wasn't, I'm not going to say it was like, blaring light, indicating where these people were, but it was enough that I could definitely see no one was hiding, So I'm looking at this, and I'm just horrified, because there's always that, I mean, I know my wife knows how, freaked out and stressed I get about making sure that everything's perfect when I'm doing a creature. But to essentially watch me struggle and twist in the wind with something like that based on a joke, I think she would know better. I've had friends that I've worked with that there's no way I would ever trust again. And I will mention I had this really cool lion head that I was building, and I turned the lion into, it's got these dreadlocks. It looked really, really cool. And so I'm airbrushing the face, and I'm using this brown. And I know in my head that there's certain browns that have more red elements and certain browns that have more green elements. One's more earthy, the other one's more burnt. So I assumed what I was using was the more, was it kind of like a medium between. And so I'm airbrushing this goddamn lion, and I'm asking them, hey, do you guys, these are friends of mine who are not only professional artists, but they are, they were on Face Off, the makeup show on Sci-Fi. So they're professional, really, competitive, special effects guys. And so, when I'm asking them this, I'm thinking I'm going to get a professional response. That's not what I'm getting. So they're telling, oh, yeah, that looks great. And, they leave for the day. I finish up my airbrushing. They're in my studio, okay? This is my house. They're in my house. I mean, my shop. This is my studio. This is Escape Design Effects. And they're utilizing the space because they happened to be in town. They needed a space to work. They were working on a film and needed a place that wasn't going to charge them or gouge them for the price, which I don't think I ever got paid for them utilizing that. Not important, but they're essentially they're telling me this thing's perfect. And my wife comes in hours after they had left, and I'm so proud of myself that I got this big ass lion head finished. And I'm asking her, like, so what do you think? And she's looking at me. She's like, "It looks good." And I know that look. I know that tone. And my wife won't let me get away with anything. If she thinks something's shit, she's going to tell me it's shit. She's got her mom with her, and they're looking at me. They're like, "So why does it look like it got bitch slapped?" I'm like, bitch slapped. I'm looking at my lion, and I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, I'm like, where? And she's like, the cheeks and, around the thing. And I'm like, I don't understand. And she's like, it's bright red. And so these areas that I had taken this brown to shade this golden color, so that you could see the contours of the creature's face, was not as brown as I thought it was. It was more red than brown, and I can't tell. And these assholes had watched me work hours. And it wasn't just like I could remove the paint. We had to do some serious work to fix this, because I wasn't just painting the surface of a creature that was just bare skin. I was painting the surface of a creature that was flocked. So essentially, we had taken an electrostatic flocked the face, so that instead of going in with a needle and punching in every hair one at a time, I was able to use this flocking stuff, which essentially created the static charge that shot the flocking at the creature, at the glued surface of this creature, at a right angle. And so it was like fuzzy, so it looked like really short hair on this lion's face. That's what I was airbrushing. I had this really cool golden brown color, but I didn't want to mix the flock, because if I did, it wouldn't actually be golden brown. It would be these weird shades of blotch, which I didn't want. So I was airbrushing this flocking, and there's no way except for to airbrush over top of it. And by that point, there's so much paint on it that it's not looking right anymore. I had to go in there with stripper and strip off. Number one, I had to remove all the damn dreadlocks. So I had to pull out all the dreadlocks that I had not only hand twisted, but that I had gone in and hair punched into the scalp of this lion. Pull all of that out. Take this chemical stripper and strip off all the paint, all the flocking, and then start all over again the next day. So I really, when someone messes with me once like that, I don't even. There's no trust ever again. At least not in that in that arena. So yeah, color blindness sucks. So we got this great shot of my wife's ass. Let me see. She is painting the T-Rex from that angle. Let me think. So it looks like I'm over to the side, probably working little patches. It looks like a few minutes ago I was. Oh, here we go. We're going to change the view of the camera. That's fantastic. So you can see we're coming up on the Triceratops, and let me think. A great shot of me up my nose. I think we're going to start showing off some of that neck work. You can see that big piece there. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, Neb. They remain friends, but I will get my revenge at some point. I'll leave them stranded somewhere. We do a lot of appearances together at Comic-Cons and stuff. Because I was on the Henson show, they were on Face Off, and so at some point I'm going to get them good. Glue their asses to their own seats. You can see some of the down here under the neck. You can kind of see some of the folds going on from the original foam, and there's that really off-looking greenish yellow piece of foam that I had just laid down. That's a portion of it, and it goes all the way up to the spine. It's actually a pretty good angle. So this is sort of looking up from underneath of that. Yeah, and I'm sorry about the lighting. Oh my God! So they were supposed to be turning on the work lights, and the work lights were more like mood lights in this little this little setting that they had. So. And what I did was I actually cut this up, because there were times where I'd left this creature for long periods of time bouncing back and forth. So, I've cut it up so that you see a lot more movement going on. But I'm coming in there. Let me see. It looks like I'm using... Oh, okay. So I'm laying down another piece of foam. At one point, when we start to glue this down, I had to use this huge popsicle stick to try to pry the fold away from the body, so that the flap of skin underneath was able to dry. and it wasn't sticking, because at that point it would have been some tearing and stuff. So but yeah, so that is a huge roll. But actually, I'm really proud of that roll, because when it was done, not only did it add a little more cool anatomy to the neck of this creature, but I think it kind of stunned the the park guys, the anthropologists. So it looks like we're coming down here to take a shot of the little one. And you can see I'm kind of working on the side. This is a smaller Triceratops. Like I said, it's about the size of a really big bulldog. Really short, stocky, wider than a normal bulldog, but basically as high. You can kind of get and I'm laying down that foam. So this is it's got the adhesive on it already, and so it's attaching to the dry adhesive on the creature itself. And then I just go in there and I'm pinching it out. And you've got to, when you cut this stuff, you've got to taper it so that it lays flush. And so I'm trying to get these wrinkles, these natural wrinkles in the skin, all the while I'm trying to lay that down at a flat angle to the creature, so that when you're looking at it after we've painted it, you can't really see, the difference. So now you can see I'm working that pivot there, and that just it kind of hid a hole about the size of a quarter. And there was a little bit of cascading, holes around it. So that will actually kind of hold everything together. You can see the neck there. There's some battle damage going on. Again, about a quarter, the size of a quarter. And on these creatures, that's actually pretty big. Looks like we're about to be attacked by some more children. Coming out of the elevator there. Yeah, and I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to lay that down, kind of press it in. And you have to... So what I usually do is I take a piece of foam over there with me, and I'll do this sketch of the shape of the piece that I need. And of course, you want a bigger piece than the hole itself, because you want to make sure that that you're going to stop the hole from growing, and you want to cover up more than at least. I don't know, a fourth, I would say closer to a half an inch on either side of the hole, to, make sure everything's good. Now you see that one little tab is sticking up. It should have gone down around the throat, but I didn't. No, it wasn't. And actually, remember, it wasn't that I didn't glue the surface and wait for it to dry. What happened was I waited too long as it was dried, and it was no longer tacky. They have this really cool, it's like a wood chip and bark floor, and it looks amazing. I got to be honest, this pen looks amazing, but there's a lot of dust. So I'm gathering as we're walking up, we're kicking up a ton of dust, and we have to keep cleaning off these creatures as we're working. So just as we think we're done, boom, there we are again. I'm working the other side. So the one creature I was telling you about, that one baby on the other side, the arm was hanging on by just a thread in the front there. So right where the front elbow of that particular creature was, God, I have a photo. I just wish I could pop it up there. That elbow was completely severed. It was just hanging on there by the thinnest of pieces of skin, and the same thing was kind of not nearly as bad, but was pretty much going on that the other side of this one, and that's what I was working. There we got one of the little children coming up and asking us questions, and it was kind of fun. I never worked in an environment like that, where we were live doing repairs to non-production audience. Usually when you're working on something like this, and you're patching something, it's usually because something broke, on the set, and you're really quick trying to fix it, and everybody on set knows that everybody knows everyone's working, and there's like this hierarchy on set. You don't talk to people outside of your department. while you, as a special effects person, might be able to go over and talk to the makeup people because you're basically in the same world, you do not go over and talk to production. You don't go over and talk to the producers or the talent, unless the talent is directly involved with what you're doing. So, I'm not used to people coming up and asking me questions about what I'm doing. So, this was a fun escape from the norm. And these kids were a trip. Some of them more trippy than others. We had one that agreed with everything I said. They would ask, the parents would ask me what movies I had worked on, and I'd start naming off some movies. And the kid's like, right, yeah, right, I saw that, right, I saw that. I was like, I hope to God you didn't see that movie, because basically a lot of the stuff I work on, is like horror related. I mean, I've worked on a couple of Disney projects and stuff. But like indie stuff, it's usually indie horror, Disney projects, some off the wall, Adam Sandler movie, or something to that effect, So there was like, I just kept thinking to myself, please, for the love of God, I hope you didn't actually see this movie. Yeah, right. I've seen that. Right. So it looks like so that back patch looks like it's ready to go, and I'm that one on the hip. And I'm laying down some coverage to essentially seal the foam. You can put paint over foam if you like raw, but it's going to have these pits. It's going to have these, pitted little. It's not going to match the texture of the rest of it. So to take care of that open cell stuff, you want to. Then you can see me doing it right there. So I'm using that barge cement and essentially sealing it up. And I would probably say you probably want to do a bunch of coats of this. So it takes a long period of time. You can see that I'm laying the first coat on there. I probably put 6, maybe 7 coats on there before we went to paint. And then it has to dry. So each level has to dry. And you can't hurry it. So if the bottom level isn't quite dry and you go to add another one, all you've done is create a thicker wet layer. So you just gotta slap that shit on there. I've actually, kind of took a little bit more care trying not to spread it around, because while I wasn't working in my studio and I didn't give a damn about the floor in my studio, I didn't want to drip this thing on the creature. Crap, I have worked myself into a stupor today. I didn't want to drip this stuff on the creature. I didn't want to muck up their really cool pen. Here I'm doing a little movement of the head to test it out. I scared the hell out of a teenage girl today. So I'm back behind the Triceratops, and I was looking at some patchwork, which I intended to show you if my damn photo bank would allow me to open it. It was this. I had finally seen what the guy had used originally to patch the creature, and essentially it was these strips of fabric, and it looked like it was dipped in some kind of silicone, and it wasn't a good patch. I mean, it was. I don't want to diss this guy's work. He did what he could with what he had. So, but. Silicone's kind of a nightmare to work with if you're not, familiar with its, material type. Nothing sticks to silicone but silicone. And so that's why we were having a lot of trouble with the glue adhering and biting into the skin of this thing. There you can see I'm trying to speed dry the contact cement. Nothing sticks to silicone but silicone, so it's not biting into the skin. And I'm like, why in the hell is this glue just peeling up? And once I saw that raw strip on the dark side of the moon of this Triceratops ass, I knew what I was dealing with. And at that point, it made more sense why some of these things weren't working. It was contaminated with a silicone surface. So I happened to have. I took a bit of a break. I went and walked around the creature. I wanted to make sure that I had gotten all of the tears and stuff, because I promised I would essentially patch everything I found. And I was coming back by, and I was kind of moseying along. I was looking at my phone. checking out. I was actually sending a message to a special effects buddy of mine because we were trying to think. Well, Sunday night I'm sending a message like, "What the hell, Crit? I can't figure out why this stuff isn't." And he's trying to tell me, he's like, maybe use something other than barge. I'm like, barge is the ultimate, man. I mean, he's showing me this stuff. He's like talking about this crap that's sold at Home Depot, and I'm like, that is the generic version of this stuff. You definitely get what you pay for, and you don't want to use that stuff. And I'm laughing at him, and we're just sort of like, it's kind of frustrating that we can't figure out why what typically works in almost every situation is not working in this situation. So I'm sending him this message with this picture. I'm like, aha! I found out what's going on, and I sent him this picture, this strip, the silicone. And as I'm walking back through the trees, I guess this teenage girl's there with her friends. So there's probably like 3 girls and 3 boys. It's probably this weird date. I don't know why they would go on a date to the dinosaur park at their age. Hey, more power to you, I guess. So I'm kind of like. I'm making some noise as I'm coming through these bushes, trees, and I'm kicking up a little bit of bark as I'm walking. And so she's hearing it. She's like, "Are these things on?" And so she's kind of staring at the Triceratops, and here I come, right around the corner. I literally stepped out in her field of view, and she jumped like 3 feet in the air and screamed. And of course, their friends thought it was just funny as hell. I was apologetic, but I couldn't stop laughing. At one point, I had to take a knee. I was laughing so hard I was afraid I was going to fall over because this girl did this full-on scream. I could see her molars while she was screaming. It was hilarious. So I scarred a child today, and I am proud of it. Teenagers, they just have it coming. So scare them all. So it looks like I don't know if I'm actually adding paint to this or not, but it looks like I might be. So yeah, it looks like I might be starting at the top and working my way down. This is messy ass work. Like, I've destroyed the pair of jeans I'm wearing, which I'm sure my wife is not happy about. She usually, outfit checks me before I go to work because anything she considers me deems illegal for the shop, she will make me change my clothes because they'll get ruined. It doesn't matter. I mean, latex will get into the fabric and it's just ruined. And what really freaks me out about working with latex, anything really, in my shop, I've seen people walk into studios with like a white, button-up shirt and they're airbrushing and stuff, and they come out looking perfect. Like they could just walk into a business meeting or something and no one would think anything of it. How the hell they avoid the contamination factor of the workplace is beyond me. Because I can have a bucket of, and I swear to God it's happened, a bucket of latex across the room, and I will get hit by some kind of latex spray because the bucket vibrated off the table because the damn train in the industrial park went by and shook it loose. It fell on the floor, spit out a bunch of latex, and it went far enough just to slap the shirt that I was wearing. And then it's over because my wife knows that I wore that shirt to work. So there are certain shirts I'm allowed to wear, certain jeans I'm allowed to wear, and that's the reason why. It looks like I am actually coating this thing with the paint. So we've kind of impregnated this paint a little bit with some latex to help give the skin factor. And so it's going to appear brighter than it'll dry. So basically what happens is whatever you see, you're probably going to, whenever you're mixing this stuff in the cup, you can guarantee that it's going to dry 5 shades, maybe more, darker than the color that you've mixed up in the cup. So you always want to do a dry test. And so what we'll do is we'll find this patch, usually on the side of the bucket of the latex, and you'll kind of like take your mixture, your paint latex mixture, and you'll kind of like do a brush across, a section, get a good, glop of it on there so that when it dries, it's good and opaque. And then you'll take the heat gun or something to quick dry it, or put a fan on it to quick dry it, so that you can see what that color is going to look like before you actually put it on the creature. So my wife mixed this stuff up to match. This is a base coat. So when it dries, it will actually match the base coat of the creature, and then we'll come in and do a a modeling to the skin. When I say modeling, it's mottling. That's it's like if you were to look at your forearm and you see how blotchy your forearm is. You don't want it to be one solid color because that's not lifelike. I mean, if you look at your skin, you've got freckles, you've got dark spots, you've got blood vessels in certain areas that are a little more inflamed than others. So you've got this crazed blotchiness to your skin, and every creature has it. So you want to make sure that you recreate that blotching to match, and that blotching is called mottling. mottling. So base coat goes on. We do the modeling and the airbrushing and stuff after the fact. You can see I'm painting the outside of the fold because if I were to paint the inside of that fold, it would be chaos. The latex would stick to the other latex whenever we turn the head of the creature. Whenever the animatronics was on, it would literally tear the latex skin away from the area that we just patched, and then it would just look like hell again. So I'm essentially I'm painting the outside of that. I'm going to jam a popsicle stick in there so that I can kind of hold those two pieces apart. You'll see that here in a bit. And then let it dry. I literally let it dry for a day. Came back the next day and painted the underside, the inside of the fold. I really love working on stuff like this because you can see that all that skin, all that weight underneath this dinosaur, where this is like the throat of the dinosaur. So all of the weight pulling down, all the gravity affecting all of that skin like an elephant. It's pulling it down. And so you've got these great wrinkles and all this anatomy going on. And so creating these huge wrinkles was just a freaking blast. I love working on big creatures. Yeah. So basically, I'm going in with a stipple sponge right now, trying to clean up some areas that... is that yeah, that's a stipple sponge. Going in with a stipple sponge, trying to clean up some areas that overlapped. I want the paint to overlap onto the body of the creature. I want it to overlap onto the original paint job so that it blends in better. And you probably want to go a good 6 inches, and a creature this big, a good 6 inches on either side, so you spread out. You really spread out that new color. I'm probably going to be moving the camera here again. I think I might actually be moving it back towards one of the babies. Yeah, it was so dark in there. Of course, that little light off to the side, just above my head where my shoulder just blocked it, was not very big at all. It was probably a size of a regular light bulb. So you have this yellowy light that you're trying to tint this thing to match the light bulb that they had, and hoping to God that they don't actually put in like a natural light bulb. If you painted it, if we brought in a natural light and we hung it over the creature and illuminated it like it would look under the sun, and then they turned on these yellow lights instead of that natural light, this creature would look jacked to be damned. So this one, I know you can't really see from the camera here, which is a really good camera, but like I said, the lighting is really affecting it. This one is actually more green-gray, and so we had to essentially create the paint to match that. If you're in the cage with it and you're up close to it the way I am there, you can definitely tell that it's been painted, but you step away on the other side of that chain link fence and it all blends. It looks like I just adjusted that tab. Remember I was telling you about that tab that was sticking up a minute ago? That tab, all that stuff is dry now, and so that stuff was able to adhere. And so it looks like I'm just going to go ahead and coat this stuff in the latex. But you can see me kind of like patting it around, and then I'll go back in with a stipple sponge and do exactly what I did with the creature above. Now this one's a little smaller, so we're probably going to be looking more like an inch past the repair mark instead of the 6 inches. Definitely don't need all that extra space. But kind of get some idea of the little trees in the background and stuff. It was really creative. The guys at the park did a great job creating this little world for these guys. Got a new angle of the T-Rex. My wife is there painting it. They got a combination of exhaustion and dehydration. God, I love that T-Rex. It was so cool. Like I said, it was smaller than you would typically, it wasn't an adult T-Rex. It was clearly a juvenile of some form. Like I said, the paleontologist suggested that it was probably a, how do I put this? Like a 1 or 2 year old T-Rex. So, we're talking a 1 or 2 year old T-Rex, and it's that big, incredible. I am going to, let me see, escape. Oops. I double tagged? No. So, I am typing in my website if you guys want to ever peruse my other my website, so you can kind of get an idea of some of the other stuff that I've worked on. I've got some Ninja Turtle stuff that I've done, stuff that I'm allowed to post. Never seems to fail when you have a movie. When you're working on a movie, they never want to release the product. It's kind of irritating in that respect, because there was a film, the premise of this film was amazing. It's been released, it's been out for a couple years now. It was an Italian film, and when I say Italian film, it was actually produced by Italian filmmakers. I believe it was directed by Italian filmmakers. Out of Italy, not just, not like Italian American. And they shot it in Utah. It was one of those few times where I worked with a film in the state of Utah. And I've worked with others, like Independence for Danny Trejo films and stuff like that in Utah. But it's a rare occasion that I'll do that. So the premise of this film was amazing. It was called Monolith. And Monolith was, was released. You know what? I would have to. I don't want to mess with the internet right now with the broadcast, but going to IMDb, if you were to type in Monolith, you'd see this picture of a car and a woman on the front. It was this great story. I did a deer for that film. And I created the child that gets trapped in the car is like a 2-year-old. So I created a silicone copy of that child so that they could shoot in the hot Utah sun with a child in the car without actually putting a child in danger. So it was a silicone child, and I have been asking them for years for a reel. It's in my contract. I've been telling them, at one point I withheld the W-9 information and stuff from them because it had been a year, and I'm like, you guys, this was part of the agreement. I'm going to go ahead and hold on to this paperwork that I know you need, so that you can get your, distribution or whatever, because I need that damn reel. And they assured me that they'd get the reel, but they really needed me to take care of this. I went ahead and I caved. And I regret it to this day because I still haven't seen that damn reel. And I think they shot that fucking film in 2014. I think it actually came out in 2016? And here it is, 2019, and I still don't have the fucking reel to that thing. That's par for the course for a lot of projects. I mean, there are projects that I worked on that I won't mention the company or the film, but they are major Hollywood film producers and film, production companies, stuff like that, that still have not paid me for gigs that I did, and it's pathetic because I I would do a job. That particular job was bid at about $5,000. they they get the product and then they don't pay you, and it's like $5,000. I mean, what was that in the grand scheme of the essentially $100 million that film made? $5,000 you couldn't pay your special effects people to to get the job done. So I've actually learned from that, and I've written into every contract, no one gets shit. Nothing leaves my studio unless it's 100% paid for. And when I send them the bid, they're well aware of that, so that, essentially if they want that shit to ship, then I better have the money in the bank. And anyone who argues that point just doesn't get the product. I mean, and I'm perfectly okay with the fact that a big Hollywood production might overlook me as a potential special effects artist, because what's the point of going out of pocket and losing money on a project if basically they're going to screw you and you're not going to get the money back? You've essentially invested in their film without any kind of payback. So I am very comfortable with missing out on on a blockbuster like, say, and this is completely random, but like, Avengers. Whoop-de-doo, I didn't get to work on Avengers, but I know that I didn't invest in that film to the point of, financial ruin on my part, so, I have no problem with them overlooking me for because someone else will pick me up, so, Here, we get to change angles again. You can see this is the modeling work that she's doing. A lot of times we'll do this with an airbrush. It's just as easy to do it with a paintbrush. A lot of times I will actually use my fingers. I was just talking to an artist briefly. I was looking at her Twitch stream kind of a couple of minutes before I actually went on myself, and she was it looked like she was doing watercolors, but it turns out it was actually acrylics, and there was some random discussion about finger painting, and I'm like, I actually do finger paint some of my creatures, so it's some, you do what you can to get that modeling effect however it works for you. Sorry to be guzzling water in the mic. I actually turned my head, but I'm sure it popped up. So, let me see here. I actually thought we were going to get another angle. I know we do move the camera around a lot, so, but you can see that they've got these really cool vines up in the ceiling. Those trees are wicked cool. I actually I've made trees before. Sorry, I just had this random smell of like fruit blow into my window, and I'm like, I don't have any damn fruit trees out there. What the hell was I talking about? I've made trees before. The way I did it was incredibly over the top, ridiculous. I saw a YouTube video of these guys essentially using spray foam. That insulation spray that you can buy at Home Depot, and spraying it onto cardboard tubes to get that bark look, and then painting it with brown paint, and kind of going in there and doing the modeling thing to it. Even trees have those multiple colors in there. You don't hear any water. I'm glad you don't, man, because I have gone through. There are 3 here. Let me pop this over. All this boring shit's going on. So, while we're sitting here, 3 bottles of water. And the only reason I even have usually we've got a Berkey over here that filters it, but we were at a project and I couldn't have my guys dehydrating, so we bought this big thing of water, and I'm trying to get rid of it. My wife can't drink it because she's pregnant, and she's like the with minerals added for taste makes her sick, makes her morning sickness flare up. So I'm stuck guzzling all this stuff. But it's really cool because I'll actually take these and I'll cut the tops off, use these for funnels and these for mixing, cups, and get a couple of uses out of them before they end up going into the recycling bin. It's just, I know it's cheesy. It's just the way I roll. There's a great shot of my wife's back. So she's so much fun to work with. I mean, you know, sometimes like you can't tell if she's enjoying herself or not. She's so anal about stuff. She's worse than I am. So like she's getting frustrated. You can see she's using the light of her phone to highlight areas that she's painting because the lighting sucks so bad. I mean, yeah. So this was actually a lot of fun. This project, I had a good time working on it. It was cool to have those little kids coming up, randomly to ask questions. Adults would come up and ask questions. In some cases, the staff of the park would come up and ask questions. It was really cool. It was so unlike the high-pressured shit that you normally deal with on set, which, we all come to expect. It's not like, you go on to set and you should be, you should be like, you're completely baffled that you're being kind of talked to. There's sort of like this talk to like you're a scrub or something. There's this certain element of, well, not even an element. There's a discussion that's sort of like it's understood when you go onto set. Everything is chaos. It's controlled chaos. Everything. So when you go on to set, it's understood that if you're barked at, it's not necessarily intended as a bark. It is merely a request in a very curt way, and everyone apologizes for the way they talk. The way they might get to that point before the set even starts rolling. So you kind of know it still aggravates. It still pisses you off. You're still going in there and you're still dealing with the the pissing contest that is Hollywood. And what's worse is on an indie film is because at least on those Hollywood projects, people have established themselves. Yes, there is a bit of there's this little tug-of-war thing, power control, the actors essentially asserting themselves in a certain ways to let, the director and the producers know there's only so far they can push them. The producers letting everyone know, hey, we're in charge, but, we're going to be okay, that we could just get this done. There's a level of curt ass-kissing that's going on a professional set. On an indie film, it's a little different. On an indie film, everyone is acting like a badass who have not yet, in most cases, cut their teeth in film. You'll have directors who think that they're directors have no business directing, but essentially they had someone sponsor them with a great deal of money to be able to help them create their vision, and they are in a power trip, state of mind. You'll have producers. Oh my God! Some of the shit that I have actually dealt with on set, and this is one example why films in Utah I try to stay away from. And I'm not saying that they are in general like this, but there are so many that are like this that it's best if I just divorce myself from working in those situations. So, like in some cases, we'll be working on a project, and here's a perfect example. I was working on a project. It was a pathetic film, but it was intended to be a pathetic film. It was this dorky slasher film that had an element of humor to it just because of the subject matter, but it was a slasher film. It had potential. It had cult potential. They hired this dipshit local to do their production. He was the producer. Had no business producing anything. We show up at his house. He wants to have the meeting at his house. He's got no furniture in his house. We're all sitting on the floor. So this is already like a red flag. He's lived there for a while, so why he doesn't have furniture, none of us can understand. And it's one of those red flags. I should have just, said, yeah, you know what? I apologize. This isn't for me. I'm going to go ahead and step away. But I didn't. I stayed there. This individual starts, he knows that the kid who's directing this film, who is a first-time director, him and his buddy had written, and actually one of his buddies were actually a friend of mine, which is kind of why I was there, and they had written this script together. and it was just cheesy. I wish I could say what the name. I don't want to give any credence to this project because it was a complete and epic fail. And it happens. I mean, a lot more in this case based on the idiot that they hired to run the production. So let me see. While we're doing this, I can probably switch over. Look at that, a new view. Me squatting next to the T-Rex. So this guy is sitting in his room. He's got most of the production staff in there, most of the senior production staff, and we're talking about, aspects of the film, and the subject of special effects comes up, and that's why I was there. And I knew that I was pretty much going to be doing this for free. And at this point, I'm actually okay with it because I know a bunch of the guys. They had helped me on one of my projects, which is the last time that I've ever considered myself a director. And shame on me for attempting something like that with as little experience as I did have. So I'm guilty of it myself. But we're sitting in this room, and he starts bringing up special effects and how they're looking to hire these people for special effects. And I'm like, well, what the hell am I doing here if you guys have already got, other people that you want doing this? They came up with some him-haw excuse. I was like, okay, whatever. If it gets me out of doing it, then fine. I'll just, I'll stick around. And but the producer knew that this kid had a fan affinity for a couple of special effects artists in Hollywood. One of them being, you know what, I'm not even going to mention the guy's name because we kind of have a little war going on. But he mentions this guy's name, and I'm like, holy shit, you actually talked to, we'll just call him Tom. I'm like, you actually talked to Tom? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, and he's interested. And he said, yeah. I was like, did you tell him what the budget was? Because I've known this guy for years. There is no way he's going to do a no-budget film in Utah, that he's never heard of anybody that's attached to it. He's not going to do it. I know this guy. I've known him for 25 years at that point. So we're talking about 30 years at this point. And they're talking about how he's very interested. And in my head, I'm calling bullshit. But I'm like, okay. So kind of grab my phone, I send out a little text message. I'm like, he has no idea. He has no friggin' idea. Well, not him directly. I was talking to his assistant because, like I said, we are at war. And he's like, no. We don't even... The guy actually asked me, which really frightens me with the education system that we have, actually asked me, what country is Utah? I'm like, it's obviously a state in the United States. I'm like, it's a state. It's in, like, the West Midwest and, Western Midwest. And, come on, what the hell? Where did you go to school? So anyway, this guy had no idea about this project. So this producer piece of shit is actually obviously caught in a lie at this point. But what finally... I never even said anything until he mentions talking to Stan Winston. And I kind of pause. Stan Winston is a mega god in the special effects industry. Came out with, Pumpkinhead, rolled out with some, oh my God, just incredible films, Terminator, Aliens, oh my God, just so many epic projects, one after another. This is an Oscar award-winning special effects company that he's talking about. And I happen to know a little something about Stan at this point. And I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to him, and I'm like, wait, are you telling me that you talked to Stan, and he's on board? And this producer's like, yeah, I talked to Stan. Of course he's on board. I mean, he likes the idea, And I'm like, you talked to Stan himself. And I'm like, you didn't talk to a flunky, you talked to Stan himself. He's like, yeah, why is that so surprising? Well, because Stan's been dead for 3 months at this point. Did you talk to him with a Ouija board? How did you communicate with him? And at that point, I looked at him, I shook my head and smirked and just walked the fuck out. Never went back. Project went downhill from there. You thought that was a learning curve for everybody. It was all over social media. Stan had passed away. And those of us who had looked at him as, as an inspiration, fully knew the loss. And to have some puke of a producer, out of nowhere, who obviously had no skills, just disrespect his, his that fresh wound was just more than I can handle. So these are some of the reasons. Drag the call out. Yeah. Which call? That was a lot of story there. I just regurgitated, so I'm not. Yeah, so it was, and for reasons like that is why I avoid, local films, local indie films. At this point in my career, I feel like, the people who need to know who I am, they know who I am. I mean, that's not arrogance. That's just, we all know each other. The special effects industry isn't as big as people might think. I mean, basically we all bump into each other. We all meet each other. For the most part, there's all this respect. Oh yeah, at that point, yeah, I did call him out on his bullshit. It was just completely, oh my god. And the fact that he was trying to spin his bullshit as I was walking out the door. The director at that point, who was actually the guy funding the film, so technically he was also the producer. This guy was sort of like the, I guess, the showrunner at this point. He should have canned his ass. I mean, really, should have canned his ass. But it's prototypical for the stuff that goes on around here. So, but yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things that you have to draw your line. And I was going off about how we all know each other. So if a film comes up and somebody calls me and it's like, hey, we got a film coming up. It's paying X amount of dollars, or hey, it's so and so. It's Tarantino's film and he doesn't have a budget. But we want to know if you want to come out. Yeah, you sort of drop what you're doing. You go work with your friends. You get drunk. You have a good time. You put out a good product, and you're happy with it. So what? You knew going in you weren't going to get paid. You knew going in who you were dealing with. So I mean, yeah, you'll do freebies, but to have some guy shooting a film on his iPhone tell you that. This would be good exposure for you. And at this point in my life, that exposure for your iPhone movie just really isn't that important to me. And again, I know that sounds egotistical, but at some point, an artist has to draw the line. And the worst thing you can tell an artist is do it for exposure. We have exposed ourselves enough. At a certain point, you need to say, I am a professional artist. I do this for a living. And there are certain types of films that I won't work with. And there could be an ick factor. I mean, good God. That film Monolith that I did it was the first woodland animal like that I had created. It was that deer. And they did some horrific stuff. Like, the deer was created so that the car hit the deer, and the deer was underneath the car. It wasn't completely dead, so there was a puppeting element to it. So it had like animatronics in it. Like the eyes would blink, the mouth would, open up with some stress, and the legs would kind of flail a little bit. There was a puppeting element to show that it was suffering to the point where it's on its last legs. And then there was some wolves that were coyotes or whatever coming out of the desert, because it was starting to get dark, and and they were coming for the meat, and the mother's trapped outside of the car. So I was really proud of that deer. But I asked him, I was like, hey, listen, this thing got hit by a car. Are you looking for any blood spatter? I mean, do you want something easily, because I wasn't going to be on set to puppet this, and thank God, because we were in southern Utah. It's hot as hell in southern Utah, and I wasn't sure what their setup was going to be. Their budget seemed to be pretty decent, but I was going to be under a hot car puppeting this deer, and you just knew that there wasn't a trench that was going to be underneath there, so you were literally going to be laying under this car, anyway, so I asked him, I was like, hey, I can put this hidden zipper in here, and we can unzip the abdomen, And then when you're ready, you can either burst a pouch, or I can have it set up and you guys can add blood, have a blood guy on set, or hell, I can make a 5-gallon pail of blood, send it with the creature. You can utilize it. But anyway, you just open this zipper and all the guts and stuff would fall out. They didn't want to spend the extra money. So I was like, okay, and I told them my concern. I was like, the last thing I want is someone to decide this thing on set, and decide, you know what, I do think we need some guts, and then have some half-assed job done where it's reflected upon me because I'm in the credits. They're going to look, who the hell was the creature designer in this? And they're going to look at it, they're like, what the hell was he thinking? And that was my biggest fear. So I get some pictures. The showrunner is actually a pretty decent guy, Matt, and Matt's sending me pictures of what's going on the set, and I'm like looking through, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is a camera angle of the shot with the silicone kid. There's a camera angle of the deer under the car. Here's another camera angle. Hey, what's that shit laying on the side of the deer? Somebody just dropped something next to it? Oh, no. Matt tells me they've decided that they needed the guts. And I'm like, God damn it, this is exactly what I was afraid of. So they went out and they bought a bunch of pantyhose and they packed it full of batting. And they strung it out. so these blood-soaked pantyhose are just laying on the side of the... I was like, Jesus, you have got to be kidding me, And my nightmare had come true. Somebody took a knife and opened up the abdomen of the creature that I had worked my ass off on, and the guts are spilling out. It's like, not even guts, the pantyhose guts. Yeah, not happy with that. Let me see. Yeah, I think so. At this point, God, I was really wanted to show you, because I've got the photos of the finished product. Why I can't get those photos to open? I've got the studio mode opened, so oh, here, maybe this. Okay, I think I found it. Wow, look at that. So let me see. I'm going to hit the transition. Well, that sucks. I am going to continue to have problems with sound with this. I swear to God. So I was essentially just explaining some of those shots. I do have a Yeti mic added to that, so I don't know why the sound dropped out. The Yeti mic looked like it was going. I'm going to flip over there one more time. Okay, that's good. I'm going to flip over there one more time with those pictures and see if maybe there's just something that's maybe muted. on the mic. So I'm going to flip over now. So I'm not sure if you can hear me, but the Yeti mic and everything seems to be solid. Let me see. Good. Let's see. Transition. See, can you hear that okay? Let me see. I'm going to pop this up. You can hear me, but okay, so you can hear me. Okay, so with the pictures and everything. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so I think I just had something muted. So let me see. I'm going to turn off this image. This image was like a standoff picture. You can kind of see the anatomy on the neck of the Triceratops. Thanks for the help with that, Neb. I appreciate that. So you can see the neck of the Triceratops, all that anatomy there, and you really can't even see all the work that we added versus the stuff that was already there. Let me think. I'm going to go up here, blend that one out, and transfer. This is kind of a shot of where that spattering stuff that we had put together on there, and that's what it. Where are we at here? I'm trying to see. So that's the raw patch, and this. Whoops. Raw patch. This is the. Whoops. I want this one. Oh wow, that picture dropped out for some reason. I wonder why that was. See, we got the standoff picture. We've got here's a standoff in reverse. I'm trying to see here's a really cool full shot. Oh wow, that one went out too. What the hell? Yeah, some of these pictures are just kind of dropping out. They were all there, and now this is all the kind of stuff that I've kind of like had to get to deal with, working with this new platform. That was the raw patch. That was the pen shot. Oh well. So you can kind of see, this is what I was saying before. There's a weird echo. Okay, I'll just go ahead and switch back to the video. Okay. Sorry about that. That weird echo, I think, was coming from the mic. Was also running off of the camera, the webcam, as well as the Yeti mic. So hopefully that cleared up. I apologize for the weird echo. I will eventually get my shit together with this. But yeah, so there you can see my wife's working on that little guy. She's putting those final touches on the stippling. At this point, the Triceratops is done. I go to start. You can kind of see my laptop over there on the side with the trackball sitting on top of the little table there. That is another one of the little critters, the little Triceratops Animatrons. That one was in the worst shape, which kind of surprised me because it didn't appear that it was going to be problematic. But yeah, it was the one that had the arm just pretty much hanging off. It was pretty ridiculous. But so yeah, at least I got to show you some of those pictures. That's the one thing about it. So it's OBS is weird to me because I'll load up some information and like the photos, and then when I go to access them, they're just not there. I mean, they were saved, and I was able to look at them before we went and live streamed, but not after the fact. So that was, kind of weird. I mean, I'm sure there's an excuse for it. I know they just did an update, but that update didn't fix that. It was actually a problem that was going on before that. So, Yeah. So this is about coming to the end of the video. We did not, because of the problems that we had and the fact that we just wanted to get this thing finished. We were exhausted by this point. Coming in today, we didn't do any video work because basically it was essentially just a couple of patches here and there, smaller stuff, really tiny stuff that we were finding in the creature, the bigger creatures. I did some touch ups to that little dinosaur there on the side, and and basically we were done. So it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, it was a lot of work. And all day today, just tripping over the cords. I remember tripping over the cords. There was the Yeti mic there. We were trying to step over the Yeti mic. The pen was big. I mean, you could see these dinosaurs were really big, but at the same time, they took up a good portion of that space. So, like setting up the cameras and stuff were problematic. But at least, I'm really glad that we were able to get the video. It was weird rendering that video. I went into Sony Movie Studio, Movie Studio Platinum 12, and I'm rendering this video. I had chopped out all the excess shit, brought it down to a smaller size, and I was really excited about getting it. I went to render it, so that it would save it as an MP4, so that I could then drop it into OBS. There's no sound. Okay, fine, no problem. I'll work through that, and then it took 23 hours to render that video. So. It's been like, oh my God, why do I do this to myself? Why don't I just go back to Facebook and just do my live streams there? God knows I have a bigger audience. I've got like 5,000 people following me, and I was told Twitch is the place to be. So, and Twitch is fine. Basically, the only thing about Twitch that drives me nuts is every time I go to do a live stream, Neb, I don't know if you have this problem, every time I go to do a live stream, it asks me to key in that code. And it's like, God, I just want to get, can I get started? Here, let me stop what I'm doing and put in the damn code again. I have marked the little box that said, this device is good for 30 days, but it never matters. It's always asking me for that thing. So that's frustrating. The code is a constant source of frustration. But basically, that's what we got to do over the weekend. It was a small job, basically small job, compared to some of the stuff that I've got, some of the gigs that I got. I'm hoping tomorrow I can do a live stream of the more detailed work of that sculpture that's been sitting on the table in my in that little space there for the last week, untouched. So, that's a no-no. But I had shit come up, so... So I'll try to do a live stream of some of the detail work there, and that's a bigger project. Once you start talking about molds, and once you see the work that goes into the molds, you can see how exhausting the process is. So to go in there and be able to do something like this and have it a little more fun, have an audience to work with that was actually there, little kids that were just excited about everything, it was really cool, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to get as much of it on film as I could, or film or video as I could, so that I could share it with the Twitch community and other artists and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and call it an evening, and I hope that you guys share this with your friends. I hope you stay tuned for other videos. I hope that this wasn't like one of those boring videos. I know the sound would have been great. You could have heard the interaction, the little comments off to the side about the crazy kids coming up and asking questions. Those were hilarious. I would have loved to have those recorded. You see, you don't have that weird code problem. I don't know what it is. They'll send me a text message, and it's got this little... 6, 7, it's an odd number, so it's like 7-digit code that I have to put into Twitch so that I can verify that, yes, it's me about to the broadcast. And then I got to do the same thing with OBS, because it's connected to Twitch. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, it happens every time. And it's one of those things you're not prepared for at first because it's still new. But yeah, I got these constant, like, little they're almost like PIN numbers that you've got to put in before it'll unlock the system to allow you broadcast. Maybe it's because I'm new. I mean, maybe it's because I don't have so many videos on. It's our way of protecting it. Maybe because you do way more videos than I do. That's probably what, why you don't have to do it. Maybe. But I'm hoping to do some really cool projects in the future. We have a project that we're trying to get approved for this place called Platforms, and it's this really cool outdoor gallery. It's essentially these 8 concrete slabs that are right off the main, what we call historical 25th Street, downtown Ogden. And a friend of mine owns. I don't want to say owns. I think he works in conjunction with the organization who runs it. But I think it's his organization. I don't want to be incorrect in that, so I apologize if that's incorrect. But we petitioned to do a Galapagos tortoise. And he's like, okay, well, let's do the Galapagos tortoise, hyper-realistic, just like those dinosaurs there. Let's do the Galapagos tortoise. But we need them to fit on the platform. And I'm like, okay, so, Galapagos tortoise is pretty big, they're like 5 feet tall, they're about... No, wait a minute, I'm sorry. They're 5 feet long and, maybe 3 feet tall, stuff like that. They're a pretty big critter, and he's like, no. See, the platform is like 13 feet. And I'm like, holy shit. So we had to upscale this Galapagos tortoise to a 13-foot, Galapagos tortoise. So it's going to be huge. It's not going to rival that T-Rex or that Triceratops, but it's going to come close. I think the final design was, Neb, I think we actually talked about this before. I think it's going to be 5 feet tall, 7 feet wide, 8 feet. Well, no, the shell is going to be about 10 feet long, and then the tortoise head, shoulders, and everything we're going to extend out the additional 3 feet. So this thing is massive. Like the foam required to put this thing together. Oh, and then on top of that, we're going to hollow out the inside so that we can puppet the creature when it's either while it's sitting there. We're talking some simple puppetry. Legs will move a little bit. It'll be on casters, so the creature will be able to move, but we don't want to puppet it that way because, there's no visibility because of the budget. The head will be able to move side to side, up and down, maybe even retract into the shell to a certain extent. It's going to be a fun project. And then I think at the end of this Platforms exhibit, they're talking about putting it on top of a trailer for a float, for the organization float that they want to put into the November parade, which is, I think it's I want to say it's right after Black Friday, so it's a Christmassy kind of parade, which I thought would be kind of cool. So getting to the point of why I brought that up was I want to live stream that build. So I think it would be cool to show people how to take a block of styrofoam, shape it down into one of these creatures, do the things you need to do, add we'll be doing big foam fabricated pieces of the skin, a lot of what we did with the dinosaur, so that those skins are movable, so that the arms are movable, the neck and all that stuff, sculpt the head and the legs so that they're legit, they look just like the creatures, because we're going for an element of realism. So, have the turtle shell all polished up, probably coated in an epoxy putty, and good and hard so it can take a hit if something bad happens to it. Yeah. I know we did talk about that. I want to say it was the first stream I did, the one where you came in and. I think it was you. You came in, and I was having sound problems. What a surprise! And the mic was off because I had switched screens to this bigger screen, what I call the full screen, where you can actually see the work going on, as opposed to this one right here, which is a little more cropped. It's got all my stuff in it. I didn't have video. I didn't have the damn mic programmed into the screen. I thought when you programmed the mic in, it was good on all of those scenes, and it's just not. Learning curve. So you had told me that essentially an hour of my work had been completely obliterated, no sound. So I'm sitting there, I'm talking about stitching. Anyway, so yeah, we did talk about it, and I think it would be cool to live stream that and show how all that stuff is done. Just kind of give an element of a different side of art. I am in no way an artist that does public art. When people start talking to me about public art in the abstract, I tend to zone out. I'm not that kind of artist. I can appreciate some of it when I look at it, but basically my art world is recreating out of materials that are completely synthetic, recreating a creature that looks so realistic that it could actually exist, and then making that creature move in that particular way. So that's the world of art that I come from. It's no better or worse. It's just I think you kind of get stuck in that paradigm of the art, and so you follow like Stan Winston, Steve Wang, these, Bruce Mitchell. These are guys, I'm trying, Ted Haynes, Billy, God, I can't remember Billy's last name. Just these people that you grew up watching their Alec Gillis, all of these creatures come to life, and you worship them because these were creature designers and special effects artists that built, your idea of art. So when we're talking about special effects, I know those guys, but you mentioned some off the wall famous, public artist, modern artist. I don't know who you're talking about. I will sit there and agree with you, like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of them, blah blah blah. So I don't look completely moronic. I don't. Anyway, so Neb, thank you for tuning in and listening to me drone on for what I'm sure was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Oh, 2 hours, 1 hour, 57 minutes. So I appreciate you tolerating this. I appreciate your help when my microphone goes out and I'm unable to communicate. Oh, hey, one other thing I wanted to ask you before I left. Is there any way to save your videos longer in Twitch? Because I noticed they're starting to take videos down. There's like 3 days before they expire. I don't do a lot of videos so that there'd be this huge canon of videos. I assume it's because the platform can only handle so much memory. But I was kind of, wondering. I know like Facebook, they can go back and look at some of my old live streams because they're in that folder. I didn't know if Twitch was limited in that way. I just happened to see that my video list said that there are 2 or 3 videos in there and they're about to expire. So if you have any information on that, let me know. I'm sure you stream probably. I'm assuming way more than I do. So you've probably got a cache at all times. You export your videos to YouTube to save them. Okay. And what I actually did, I just downloaded the 2 that were there. But eventually my memory is gonna, my hard drive is gonna be just like, yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. That's great. I never even thought to export that to YouTube, so I'll do just that. Cool, man. Well, thank you for all the help, and I will see you on the next one. And I'm gonna go check out some of the stuff you got going on. All right, man. You guys have a good one. Catch you later.